The Iowa Senate rejected on Monday two of Governor Terry Branstad's appointments to the State Board of Regents, including the reappointment of Regent President Joyce Lang. How would you describe your working relationship with Regent Lang?
I've had a good working relationship with President Lang. We've certainly had many opportunities for discussion and conversation, and he needs to be thanked for his service on the board. He's done a good job on the Board of Regents. Citizen volunteers, that's who these people are that serve as regents, and these are hard jobs. So I'm prepared and anxious and willing to work with anyone who's appointed, and that decision, of course, is up to the governor and the legislature.
A new president will now be appointed among the Board of Regents following President Lang's departure. What challenges do you believe the new president and the board as a whole will face following the Senate's decisions?
Well, you mean that might be different as a result of the Senate's decisions? I don't know that the challenges are going to be much different. I mean, the challenges really are helping the institutions, the special schools and the three Regents universities, helping us obviously achieve our aspirations and our goals. And the Regents do a darn good job of that. We'll be saying goodbye to Regent Evans and Regent Miles and Regent Lang in April, and they all need to be thanked for the wonderful job that they've done on behalf of Iowans for the Iowa Regents institutions.
The Transparency Task Force met for the first time last Friday. What are your thoughts following that initial meeting?
Well, I'm not part of that meeting, but Mark Braun, my Chief of Staff, is a member of that committee, and so he keeps me informed. And I think the committee obviously is feeling its way along, exactly what work it will do, how it will, I hope, come to some consensus and some agreements on best practices and help inform all of us at Regents institutions on how to do our work with regard to transparency even better. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Can you talk specifically about what you and other University of Iowa administrators have accomplished since you were asked to, quote, reframe and reprioritize your goals for the 2012-2013 academic year?
Well, a lot of that was around communication, and a lot of that is in process. Certainly Hawkeye Caucus Day was a big part of communications, but we're also now doing a lot more to let people, certainly across Iowa and legislators in particular, know about what's happening in their local areas. So hometown Hawkeyes, Hawkeye Caucus information that's being shared, doing a better job of communicating information and letting more people know about the impacts that our students, our faculty, our staff have, and not just locally, but all across the state of Iowa and even beyond the boundaries of Iowa. That's a big part of how we reframed some of my goals for the future.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay.
Following the dismissal of former Rutgers coach Mike Rice, you were quoted by KCRG as saying that the video of him physically and verbally abusing his basketball players made your skin crawl. Head basketball coach Fran McCaffery can be a vocal coach, often seen yelling at his players. Where do you, as president of this university and as chairwoman of the Big Ten Council of Presidents and Chancellors, draw the line when it comes to coaching?
Well, certainly some of what was seen in the video was very physical. Yelling is one thing. Becoming emotional is one thing. You can learn a lot from watching those things. You can learn a lot from getting to know the players. I think a good conversation on this topic would be with the athletic director, because the athletic director is typically the person who's closest to the day-to-day operations of the coaches and the day-to-day operations of our student athletes. So from the perspective of questions that I have, for example, and I've had conversations with our athletic director about our coaches to make sure that there aren't the kinds of things that were obvious on that video going on here. I appreciate emotion, and I appreciate excitement, and I appreciate energy as much as the next person. But there are lines that do need to be drawn. And from time to time, sometimes we have to remind people that now you have an audience here of young people, including children, that come to watch sporting events, and let's keep it so that families want to continue to come to these events.
With Rutgers set to join the Big Ten Conference, what kind of discussions will be had amongst university presidents and administrators to ensure that a situation like this doesn't happen again?
Well, discussions of events, whether it was Rutgers or Penn State, go on all the time. Among presidents, certainly, among athletic directors, certainly, and this just adds to the conversation. We've been working on ways in which the Big Ten Conference, as a conference, can be helpful to institutions when they run into problems or have issues that are, in some cases, larger than the institution. Sometimes they're of a very serious nature, and they deserve conversation, and we need to learn from them. We need to learn lessons from them. We need to obviously move on from them. And we need to be certain that they're not repeated in the future. So.
Did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I just have one follow-up question.
Sure. Yeah.
What does university administration and just you specifically do to ensure that student athletes are students first?
It's been certainly part of my commentary and my comments from the very beginning. I'm a big believer in the student athlete, and we put student first for a reason. The thing that I have enjoyed a lot is that our coaches believe that too. You see it in the graduation rates that we have with our teams. You see it when I have the opportunity to interact with student athletes. They're for the most part, they're very serious students. They're performing at a very high level, and yet they're also athletes performing at a high level in their respective sports. And I have tremendous respect for the young folks that do that. It's not easy.
While there's been a focus on the construction of new facilities following the 2008 flood, a source told the Daily Iowan that there's a possibility Seashore Hall could come down in a few years. Likewise, there's been a rumor that the Communications Center is being demolished to allow for expansion of the Seaman Center. Can you address either of these rumors?
Well, they are just rumors. I will say, and I have said this a couple of times to groups, that we need to do something about Seashore Hall for sure. That's a building that's in much need of repair. It's not a building that I can proudly show to people and say, look at this great academic facility. It's just not. I had, in my mind, assumed that Seashore Hall would probably be next on our list of buildings to repair, replace, modify significantly. And as it turns out, and this is something that, because we have an energy center now, and we can actually look at buildings in terms of what facility is the least efficient facility that we have on campus. And much to my surprise, the old pharmacy building turned out to be the least efficient and worst building on campus. I think Seashore Hall is not far behind it. So don't be surprised if our next priority, when we get once we get pharmacy taken care of, our next priority very likely will be Seashore Hall. So I can at least help you with that rumor.
Can you speak specifically about what efforts are currently being made to restore and renovate existing buildings on campus?
That's an ongoing process, and it's sort of like any homeowner will tell you. You do restoration, renovation, both according to need and what you can afford. So we're always looking at our budget and saying, okay, what can we afford to do, and what are our priorities with regard to renovations or improvements in buildings. A lot of our decisions are driven by efficiencies. Can we make a building, for example, cost us less to run? And if we can, then we work hard to find the resources to be able to do that. So, for example, the buildings up here on the Pentacrest, over a period of several years, got new windows. Those new windows are far more energy efficient than the old ones were. It costs less now to power these buildings than it did previously. And that's good. That's a savings over the long term. So we spend some money on windows up front, but over the long term we'll spend less on energy to heat and cool these buildings. So we look at all kinds of things with regard to, the age of a facility, what the needs are currently, what the needs are for students to make sure that we have the classrooms or the residence halls up to code, as well as efficient as we possibly can be. So it's not an easy process to just say something needs to be repaired or replaced. We have to prioritize, and we have to have good reasons for spending precious few dollars that we have available for this.
Okay. The election for the next University of Iowa Student Government Party comes to a close today.
It does.
What initiatives are you hoping to see from the next pair of student leaders?
I'm open. I always enjoy hearing the students' ideas. I know when Nick and Nick were running last year, we had two gentlemen named Nick, both of whom I knew were running last year, and I had a chance to talk with them. We talked a lot about tuition and the whole idea of a tuition freeze. When I mentioned that to them and I said this might be a possibility, they were very enthusiastic, obviously. So occasionally I'll have an idea that I can share. At this point in time, obviously we're working hard towards a tuition freeze, and we'd like to continue that. And I hope that whoever is elected can help us continue that initiative. And beyond that, I hope that they have some good ideas, things that they as students would like to push, and things that I can help them with as president. I can help advocate with them for. So I'm going to wait and see who wins the election, and then we'll sit down and have a conversation and see what issues they'd like to raise.
What stands out in your mind as the successes of this year's student government?
Well, a tuition freeze is going to be a big one. Assuming that things hold in the legislature, and the budget right now, as it's laid out, is where we're going to end up, I think we can all cheer that resident tuition for our undergraduates won't be going up next year. That's a big one. I mean, by any measure, it's hard to imagine that we could be at a place like that. And it's a great initiative that students have pushed for, I've pushed for, and our Board of Regents is pushing for, and the legislature and the governor seem to be very responsive. So it's worked beautifully, it's worked perfectly. Let's just keep our fingers crossed that nothing happens between now and the end of the session.
Sorry, just one more follow-up question on my part.
Yeah.
I know that when I first initially heard the names of the parties running, I was a little taken aback. What were your thoughts on that?
Same thing. And then it was explained to me that they're acronyms, although I couldn't tell you exactly what the acronym is in the case. But yeah, and I thought, oh, students, they're so clever sometimes. And if I were a student, I'd think it was funny. For viewers, by the way, Toga and House. Those are the two parties that are running. And yes, they are acronyms for something entirely unrelated to Animal House.
UI officials introduced the Summer Tuition Scholarship Program last month. Some students have expressed concerns about the limitations of the program. What is the overall goal of the program?
Well, the goal of the program is to make summer school both affordable and an option for more students. We'd certainly like to have more students stay and take summer school classes if they can, and also, more importantly, on the student success initiatives, to keep students on track towards graduation. That's probably the most important goal, and why we're trying to do this is we know that occasionally a summer school course can make the difference between graduating in 4 years versus having to take another semester or maybe even another year. And if that's the case, then we want to make sure summer school is a viable option for as many students as possible. So it was that simple.
What is the incentive for out-of-state students to get a head start on their academic careers at the UI as well?
Well, obviously, if they get a head start on their out-of-state careers, in the end, they graduate on time or maybe faster, and it costs them less. On-time graduation means that you can budget and plan for a 4-year college education. I don't think too many people are budgeting and planning necessarily for 5 or 6 years, and sometimes it works out that it takes that long. I worked, oh my goodness, I worked 30 to 40 hours a week when I was an undergraduate. Managed to graduate in 4 years, but I didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of extra things. I wouldn't have had the time to do, for example, reporting for the Daily Iowan. I didn't have time to do study abroad. I didn't have time to take advantage of a lot of the extracurricular activities that I actually think are important for students to do. So I don't advise students to try to work that much. But I know a lot of students were like, and are like I was, and they do have to work. So.
Okay. It's been a few months since the College of Law was chosen to house the Center for Human Rights.
Mm-hmm.
How have you been involved, if at all, with the discussions surrounding the future of the center?
Not at all. The provost has led those discussions, and I think he's done a very fine job. And I give a lot of praise also to our College of Law and Dean Agarwal. She's worked hard to have the faculty over there understand what the center is and how important it is to the university and now to the College of Law as well. So I think it's a good solution.
Is there any update on the college, the Center for Human Rights?
You should ask the provost. Okay, I would encourage you to ask the provost. He has more daily information than I do.
Okay. A female student reported that she was sexually assaulted at an off-campus party this past weekend. Mm-hmm. While UI officials don't discuss individual cases, can you elaborate on any new efforts that address sexual assaults and campus safety?
Yeah, we've been working hard to try and improve people's awareness, how to take some responsibility not only for your own safety but the safety of your friends on and off campus. And even more importantly, if something like this happens, you need to report it. We need to know about it because we can't do anything about it if we don't know about it. And unfortunately, the data that are out there suggests that too many of these things go unreported. I know it's very frustrating for the county attorney who would like to be able to prosecute more of these things, getting witnesses to come forward, getting someone who has suffered from an assault to come forward and talk about it. It's very hard. It's a very personal thing. And it's very challenging and difficult to get people to understand that, yes, we can deal with these things. I mean, we had a former student sentenced to a prison term this year for assaulting another young woman. How unfortunate for the young woman who was assaulted. But in the end, clearly there's punishment that can be meted out to the individual who did the crime and hopefully maybe discourage others. There's, I don't ever pretend to believe that there will never be assaults, that we could find some way to prevent all assaults. People, unfortunately, do bad things from time to time. But punishing them, setting examples, that this is bad behavior and it won't be tolerated, we need to be able to do more of that. And I know it's not an easy thing. It's never an easy thing.
What would you say to students on campus, especially women, about feeling comfortable within the University of Iowa to come forward?
Well, the statistics tell us that overall this is still a very safe place, but that doesn't mean that there won't be assaults, that there won't be sexual assaults, that there aren't things that won't or don't happen here. That's just not realistic. So getting educated, understanding how to keep yourself safe, how to help your friends be safe. We have lots of learning materials, educational materials. We have lots of, our public safety department is always doing workshops and providing opportunities for students, staff, community members to get some training, both in terms of personal safety, but also what would you do if you witnessed something? You know, would you intervene? How could you intervene in a situation that might help the situation, not make it worse, but actually help the situation? And that's where our Department of Public Safety experts can really help students understand not only what their responsibilities ought to be, but also how they can keep themselves safe as well as their friends. So I would encourage students to look for these opportunities and take advantage of them. You can't be too safe. Young people generally like to think of themselves as immortal until something bad happens. And that's when they suddenly have a wake-up call that life can be unpleasant sometimes. And understanding that and taking precautions, how to avoid it or how to deal with it if you happen to find yourself in a bad situation, there are things you can do, and we can help you with that. You might want to talk to Chuck Green about the kinds of things that public safety offers. You know, it's something that oftentimes the student government leaders will take up as an issue too. When we had Night Ride, Safe Ride, those things, those were things led by our students, and our Department of Public Safety helped with those. So there's lots of things that students can bring to our attention as they become issues, and we can help them with that. Dr. Rockland's a great resource in this regard. Okay.
A female student was struck by a CAN bus in the fall of 2011 and is now suing the university, the CAN bus driver, and the Board of Regents following the incident. At the time, the UI didn't release a comment about the lawsuit. Is there any statement now?
No, it's ongoing litigation. So there really isn't anything to comment on at this point in time.
Okay. The search for the next university librarian started this month, with 2 candidates already having interviewed for the position. Can you speak about the importance of this position, especially with the digital revolution changing the way students both learn and study on college campuses?
Yeah, well, this is a search, obviously, that is conducted through the provost's office, and he would have much more to say about this than I do. But let me say this, because it is an important position, and it's a university-wide position. Libraries are changing, like your discipline is changing. You know, whether it's print news or television news or however we get it, things are changing. Technology is driving a lot of that change. So not surprisingly, as we look at candidates for librarians, we're looking for a person that has a vision of the future, because the library is going to be a very different place in the future, and our library already is a different place. If you haven't had a chance to go over there, see if you can get someone to give you a tour of the new Learning Commons, because it's just about completed. And it'll be open for business next fall, and it would be a great thing, I think, for the DI to get some photos and maybe begin to promote what I think is going to be great spaces, new spaces for students starting next fall. There'll be places, you know, wired to the hilt. And believe it or not, when I tell alumni about this, I always use remember what the library was like when we were students? It was a place where you went, there were lots of books, it was quiet, no food, nothing like that. It's all changed. It's all different. We even have a cafe in the Learning Commons in the library. So it's going to be a very different place. And it wouldn't surprise me if students will spend time in the Wellness Center and then just come across the street from the Wellness Center to the Learning Commons, do their studying, study in groups, study individually. I think it's going to be a fabulous space, and it was designed with students in mind, and students of today in mind. So we need a librarian, obviously, that has a vision for today and the future. And that's going to involve technology. That's going to involve a very different kind of library than what I was used to. And being very responsive to the students and what the students are looking for when it comes to their own learning experiences. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be exciting.
Does the university have any programs or anything in place to help deal with changing technology and kind of keep up with that technology?
I'm sure we do, and I suspect we have a lot of them, and I'm probably the wrong person to ask. Um, Steve Flagel, who is sort of our chief information officer for the university, and our provost those would be good resources to ask about this. Our tile classrooms are a great example of new resources for students. The Learning Commons is going to be another example of new resources for students, much the way our Campus Recreation and Wellness Center set a high bar for what we do for students in terms of rec and wellness too. So we have a lot going on. I don't know every little piece of it, but every piece that I've heard of and seen so far has been extremely exciting from my perspective. Yeah.
My last question would be, are there any updates on construction across campus?
How much time have you got?
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Well, let me be quick, because for me right now, it's exciting to wake up in the morning, look out my window, and see the earth being moved for the New Hampshire Auditorium. I believe they've started the deconstruction of Old Hampshire, but because it's a building that's filled with asbestos, you won't see that. You won't see much progress for a while. They're going to have to take it down from the inside out. So at least for a while, they'll be doing asbestos mitigation, and then eventually we'll start to see Old Hampshire come down while New Hampshire is going up. I understand that the whole that will be the underground parking in the new children's hospital is completed now. And there's signs of concrete and steel over at the new residence hall site. So that's, and that you can look out my window and see the Papa John Biomedical Discovery Building now. It will be open for business a year from now. And my last plug on new construction is we were thrilled to learn that the College of Public Health building achieved LEED Platinum status. That's very exciting. That's our first on-campus LEED Platinum building, first academic building on campus, and stay tuned, because I think a lot of these projects that are going on right now will be every bit as sustainable as the College of Public Health.